I think we're ready to rock and roll here. So I have 6 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order, and I want to welcome my colleagues and folks from town and our residents and observers who are here. We'll call the meeting of the Zoning Bylaw Committee to order at 6 p.m. on November 2nd. The agenda that we posted was specific to really a couple of items tonight. One being to offer the public an opportunity to bring comments before the committee for its consideration as we work through the process. And two, we had some communications via email over the last few weeks. And we will touch on those communications as well, so that they're ultimately made part of the record, and members of the committee have received those in advance. And we can touch on those and move through those particular comments before the evening is out. And then we'll just proceed through old, new, and any other items that we have to tend to. I'll note at the outset that we have some of our committee members who are not with us tonight. They had conflicts. Aaron Wertman, Dick Huco, Selectman James Mackey are not with us tonight. So we have a little bit of a smaller crowd, but nonetheless, we'll proceed. This meeting is being taped, so folks can view it down the road, as can our absent members. There's no phone-in capability, as I understand it, so if you're not in the room or you haven't submitted commentary in the past, we're going to be out of luck. But I will mention that we will have another public input opportunity in mid-January after we work through a number of our reviews on different topics, and that calendar has already been posted, if I recall correctly. I think it's out on the website. If not, we'll make it so. So there'll be another bite at the apple for public input. All right. I'm going to ask that if you have public comment this evening, doesn't seem like we have a big crowd, but we want to try to be to the point. We're not here to debate. We're here to get information on your perspective on a particular area. It's very helpful if you can point specifically to detail as opposed to speaking in generalities. But we want to give you folks in the room certainly an opportunity to speak. I'd ask you to be concise. I'd ask you to be as brief as possible, and so that others have an opportunity to have their turn. And then we'll go from there. Members here may have questions or feel they want to get some clarification, and that's certainly, I'll leave that to their judgment. But we're here to listen more than to speak, and we'll take your comments under advisement. And as we work through this process over the next 3 or 4 months, we'll definitely consider the feedback that's been presented to us in the various forums that we've had and the formats that we've had. So before I ask if there's any comments from the public, any other concerns or issues at the table? No? Okay.
The only thing I would add, just ask, I guess, would be that not only those who wrote in, but those who speak this evening, we ask that they keep the same open mind that we've said we are trying to keep.
Yeah.
To try not be in absolutes. It isn't, if their proposal isn't fully accepted, I hope they'll at least consider what does get put forward and not out of hand, because it's not exactly, what they may have, proposed.
Yeah.
But they would at least consider that as well.
Yep, it's a large document, so there's a lot of things in there, and to your point, I suppose there's things that everybody can agree on, and there will be things that each of us may have some concerns about, but that's how the process works.
Can you bring the mics closer? It's hard hearing you guys.
I'm going to suggest you come closer too, so that I have a scratchy voice tonight, and I don't want to be yelling. Do my best, Bob. but why don't you come closer as well, if that's okay? There seems to be a dead spot in that corner of the room, because I hear that at virtually every meeting I'm at. Thank you. So let me open it up to you folks. I don't know, there's maybe 8 or 10 of you here, and there's certainly opportunity for you to offer your comments, and we want to hear them. The only thing I'd ask is you go to the podium and use that microphone, because we're trying to record it. So let me open that up. Feel free. I see you have a piece of paper in your hand. You want to lead us off?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Thanks.
I have
And
about
I'll be
7.
reading it, so bear with me.
Thank you. So just do us a favor for the record. Just give us your name and address so we can capture that.
Yeah, my name's Harry Wynn. I live at 30 Chucky's Way in Tewksbury. Hi, everyone. I'll try to make this quick. I'd like to talk about the reduced lot size, which was part of the zoning bylaws, then was taken out before the vote. I'd like it to go back in. Right now, we have a one-size-fits-all zoning in Tewksbury for the residential lots, and it's 1 acre. This works for some of the town, but not all of Tewksbury. There are some areas where less than an acre or half an acre is just a reality, and that's fine. Not everyone needs a football field-sized yard. Being able to build a house on less than 1 acre in some areas of town would add to the housing inventory and perhaps make homes more affordable in our town. Our residents are being priced out of the town they grew up in, first-time home buyers and elderly. Older folks are trying their hardest to stay in the community, and young adults can't afford to buy here. So I would like you to please consider putting the reduced lot size for some neighborhoods back in the zoning bylaws.
Thank you.
Bob O'Brien, Cardigan Road.
Thanks, Bob.
One question, fees in lieu. I would like them removed from the bylaws. 100%, there's a lot of confusion on them. There was a fee in lieu for rental property. Now I understand there's a fee in lieu for sidewalks. So I'd like to see it totally eradicated from our, any type of law process in Tewksbury.
Yep. Okay. I'll just mention in response to that, because, excuse me, the timing is somewhat good. We met, I don't know, was it a week ago, 10 days ago? I can't recall. But we met, and the topic of discussion for our first meeting of substance was specific to the fee in lieu of for units on October 20th. And I think it's safe to say that the conclusion of this committee was to essentially stand on the draft that currently exists that was presented at the last town meeting. So that would eliminate the fee in lieu of in the multifamily components, but in the subdivision, it would have still some viability, and that would be, discretionary as it currently is. So it's not a total ban, but on the larger projects, and specifically the multifamily, which I think, from where I sit, has been a source of concern among the community. That is an area that we've addressed. So we're not here tonight to say that's the final outcome. We took that step, and that was the evaluation that the committee made on the 20th of October. And if nothing changes in our view between now and next town meeting, that's kind of where we're sitting.
Now, what's the definition of a subdivision versus multifamily? That now we're getting into, apples and oranges, or again, it becomes gray, not black and white. So what's the difference between subdivisions and affordable?
Yeah.
It should either be all or none. It shouldn't be for this, because that's where we get into issues about sometimes we allow it, sometimes we don't. It makes the people that make those decisions jobs more difficult, and it makes it very unclear to the residents as well.
It's a good question, and I'm going to have to defer to my colleague to my left here because he's a better expert at this topic than I.
So with subdivisions, that's where lots are being created. So you would get a single-family residential home in a subdivision. Under current state law, planning boards are designated for subdivision approvals, and subdivision approvals at the planning board level are under a separate state law than zoning. And what we did here is we allowed for reduced lot sizes through the open space residential design special permits. And when we created that back in 2003, 2004, we put an affordability requirement on it. So anyone coming in for a single-family subdivision under these open space residential design subdivisions have to have an affordable requirement of 10%. And that's where conversations have occurred that it's significantly different than a multifamily development where you have condos that look the same or apartment buildings where you can't distinguish from the exterior what those units look like inside. So it becomes one of these things of the committee came down on having the multifamilies require the affordables with no fee in lieu of, but with the open space residential subdivisions, there's still an option that a fee in lieu of is on the table. So it's a single, what you see with subdivisions are single family housing lots.
But it could be a 30 unit subdivision.
Could be.
And that's what makes it confusing, and I don't think it's appropriate, so.
No, we appreciate that. And again, you know, that's partly why we're here, so we get your feedback. And I know both of you gentlemen have sent emails in on these topics as
Okay,
well.
good.
So I'm going to just acknowledge that now to save the time later, because you're essentially stating what you did in your emails.
And the other part of that was I'd like to see it taken away from the planning board. If we allow fees in lieu, I'd like to see it taken away from the planning board and put it to the ZBA.
Okay.
Can I just ask for clarity? Why?
Sure.
I think the buck stops with the ZBA and a lot of different types of voting, and I think the way the fees in lieu have been handled in the past by the planning board, I'm not comfortable with them. I'll leave it at that.
But your suggestion is to split the decision-making for a process up, correct? Because
No,
the rest of what's
my-
No, what I'm saying though is the rest of whatever's going on, that subdivision would be handled at the planning board. You want to split out this one piece, is that correct?
No, I want to make it simple. Fees and lieu should go away. There'd be no question about splitting it up. If for whatever reason, I don't want to call it a motion, but my suggestion doesn't carry weight, I would like to see, if the fees and lieu stay on our books, I'd like to see that decision-making be transferred to the ZBA and not with the planning board. And one thing Mr. Sagwick said, you mentioned something about some state about subdivisions and that stuff, and do we have to? Because if the state has some type of guidance on their books, we don't have to follow it as a town.
Well, so as I was explaining the subdivisions, what I was trying to do, and I may not have done a good job of it.
It's confusing.
Yeah, and I apologize for that. There's really, again, subdivisions can occur at the local level without going through zoning. If you are creating single-family, 1-acre lots in the town of Tewksbury, you don't have to go through a zoning process. You stay in the subdivision process. And what happens is we chose to say, we will give you the ability to reduce your lot size, but you have to go through zoning. And that's where we kind of picked them and said, you're going to have to provide 10% affordable units here. If they did a conventional subdivision, they wouldn't have to provide any affordables. When we created that small lot subdivision process, we were trying to preserve open space. And affordable housing was kind of thrown into the mix of all of that. But traditionally, open space residential subdivisions are more about open space protection, not about affordable housing creation. So we tagged that obligation onto those types of subdivisions through our zoning process. That was our decision here in this town.
Now, wasn't there an issue with development in Pine Street where the original developer wanted to put in 6 homes in a subdivision? And then he was informed, well, if it's greater than 5, you have to have an affordable unit. So he backed it off to 5? Is that true?
There was, that subdivision approval process went on for quite a long time. And there were, at the end, yes, you're right.
So he
But it's how
he backed away 1 unit so he would be exempt from the affordable
The affordable
housing.
requirement, but I think what he did, what he may have done, and I'd have to go back and double check, he may have carved out a component separate and then said what's remaining is only equivalent to 4 housing lots. So what happens is we see a lot of machinations of playing with how a subdivision is being laid out over this issue. And like I said, under typical subdivision approval, if it's 1 acre zoning, you don't have a affordable housing requirement on you.
Okay, why don't we keep it that way? Keep it 1 acre zoning.
That's a totally different discussion, but
I mean, so, all right.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Who else?
Hello, Jessica Randolph, 1484 Andover Street. Just a point of information, I'm following this conversation. For the open space residential, what is the minimum house lot size?
10,000? I think it's 10,000, I think it's 10,000 square feet.
10,000?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to let you know, that has been in the
Right.
town zoning bylaw, I think, since 2002.
Right, I'm
Yeah.
not making any negative comment
Yep,
about
yep.
it. Mhm. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead, sir.
How you doing? I'm Joe Capello from, excuse me, 48 Chucky's Way in Tewksbury.
I don't sound as bad as you.
I know, I'm terrible. Did a lot of screaming this weekend. So anyways, I live on 48 Chucky's Way. Our street, there's not many houses on it, there's 5 houses. You pull down our street and you see a beautiful house, you see a bunch of land, all the houses set off to one side. There's probably 4 houses on that street that should have the right to be able to put something up there. Obviously, take that into consideration. I'm one of them. I mean, I've got a beautiful level lot, you know what I'm saying? I have enough room to put one up there. I look right behind my land, and you guys put in that new beautiful development. It's great, but the houses are so close to each other. We've got way much more room than what they have there, so I definitely would like you guys to take that into consideration, and that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Karen Sleva, 254 North Street. First, I want to ask the question, has the quarter acre zoning been totally stricken and taken out not to return?
Let me just address that, because there's people here on opposing views of the whole thing. Last time, the zoning article that was brought forward to town meeting went through 10 different drafts. Out of those 10 different drafts, the quarter acre zoning showed up in 2 of the 10, in the middle of the 10. So when we were talking about drafts 4 or 5, that was in the mix. When we came out with drafts 7, 8, 9, 10, and put the article together for town meeting, that did not have the reduced lot sizes in it, and what we're talking about today does not have the reduced lot sizes in it. So there is no quarter acre zoning in it today. Earlier this evening, it was brought up that it was taken out. It only was in for 2 drafts of the 10 that we went through back over the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to know if all the additional uses had been taken out of office research, including the MFD and the large-scale nursing home or assisted living, that type of thing. Were those stricken?
As of right now, the answer is no, but at the next meeting of the committee, which is November 16th, we'll be talking about the use table at that time.
Okay.
So that conversation will come up. But feel free, Karen, to ask whichever uses it are that you're looking for to be removed.
Okay. And lastly, I would like to really see a more consolidated effort put into using the monies from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, because I think if that had been done all along, that we wouldn't be in the predicament that we are now with the 40B.
Okay.
And that's
Good
it.
feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you. We just pause for a minute because we've mentioned it a couple times. Next meeting we have is the 16th of November. We're going to talk about the use table that Mr. Sadwick just referenced, so that might impact the question that was just posed. The 8th of December, we're going to do definition review. On the 20th of December, discussion of marijuana. On the 5th of January, we're going to review the zoning map. And then on the 19th of January, we're going to have another public input session. And February 2nd will presumably be our last review of the draft in its entirety. The warrant has to be submitted by the mid-February. So you can see the tight timeline that we're on here. We're starting with the framework of what was presented at the town meeting last May. So let me ask if there's anyone else who has questions.
Can I just add to that?
I'm going to let this gentleman go first who hasn't spoken.
Sit down, Bob.
RJ Shilley, 90 Cardigan. So a question, I guess, related to this. Do you guys have a working version of what you're, or a published version of what you're working off of right now? And then I guess, Mr. Johnson, to what you just said, do you have also published your timeline and your schedule of meetings and what you guys are going to be trying to accomplish at that?
The draft schedule's up at the draft zoning
Yeah.
bylaws.
So on the town's website, the zoning bylaw committee, the left-hand side, the left-hand column, there's a link to the final draft, final zoning draft. That's the document that we're working off of right now. And then the timeline will be up sometime tomorrow. We'll put that on.
Right, so the draft that was proposed as an article to the town meeting, that's the current version. And at
Yeah.
some point, as edits are made, you'll update that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I guess just kind of one, and I apologize, it's more of a general comment, I guess related to my questions, is I think it would be helpful and beneficial, at least for me, like from the committee's perspective, if there was a charter that was published so the public could see what the intent of the committee is. I think that what that helps to do is provide transparency and visibility on what you guys are trying to accomplish. I know there was a lot of issues with how it was, the process before. It was a 5-year-long process, and I don't want to rehash all of that. But, you know, from my perspective, my professional perspective, in the industry I am in, a project that is 5 years long is a red flag of this is way too big. And I think this has been discussed a little bit previous, but it's just to me a red flag of like, this is a great place where maybe you guys can go about it in a different way and chunk it down. I know it, maybe it was the first meeting of the reconvene of this committee that was brought up and it was just brushed aside. I'd like to know why. Why can't we at least, or you guys at this point, look at what happened? Look at retrospect the process and why it failed, and then possibly come up with a new approach to get this thing done. I totally understand that the way that this thing is written now, it's a problem for a lot of people, understand. But why not try to chunk it instead of having an all or nothing to try to get some changes in place and get them done and make some progress on this, instead of trying to go back, town meeting again, one big ass thing, and who knows what's gonna happen.
So all good comments, and none of which have been decided, and what I would just urge you to do is, it's been referenced, it was a 5-year process, it went to town meeting. It lost by 2 votes. We're starting that process again, literally a month ago. So it's no longer a 5-year process, it's now 30 days. And by the time we get to next May, it'll be a 6 or a 7-month process. And all those options that you just suggested are all on the table. This committee will wrestle with those and make those decisions at the appropriate time.
Okay, I appreciate that. I was kind of on the assumption that you guys are just kind of, I mean, it's still, I understand the 5 years is gone, now we're a month to 2 months in, but in the end, it's still a big document that's trying to be passed
No
as a
question.
single vote. But
No
so-
question. Yep.
Okay, I appreciate that,
Yeah.
thank you.
There's a lot of ways to do that. Actually, there are only just a few ways to do this process, right? Because at the end of the day, it's town meeting. That's the only way it gets changed. You folks have to support it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bring it one more time.
If no one else has a first question, I'll let you have a second question. Anybody else? First time around? All right, go ahead, sir.
Thanks again. I was here over the last few meetings, over the last few years, and the town of Tewksbury hired a consultant. She was a lady, and we spoke at great lengths about the reduced lot size. She was 100% on board with the reduced lot size, didn't understand why the town of Tewksbury wouldn't move forward with it. What I want to know is, if you're paying this lady money for what advice she can give you, why did you go away for it? And one more thing, that you took the reduced lot size out of the last package. You lost by 2 votes. I have 6 family members that vote in my house.
Yeah, I can't speak to why it was taken out. I know the committee worked on that topic for quite some time. So again, there's a fresh slate here, and part of the feedback that you folks are providing is good information for us to think about. Yeah.
Here through the grapevine of the reduced lot size was taken out because they were afraid that it wouldn't pass with it in.
Yeah.
I tell you, it would pass with flying colors with it in.
I wasn't at the table at that time, and I hear a lot of things every day that I can tell you that happen here in Town Hall that aren't even close to being true. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So, ma'am, you have a second question?
Just looking for your general information or thoughts or any details that you might have of any changes that you're looking to make in North Tewksbury, specifically North Street, 133, Fisk Street, anything whatsoever. I would appreciate having your thoughts. Thank you.
Can I just ask for a clarification on her question?
Sure.
Do you mean in addition to anything that may have been in the one that went to town meeting before?
Anything that's a change from the current.
Okay, so if it was in the version that went to town meeting in May, you'd like it pointed out? Just if we make another change now?
Are there changes that I did not see?
I don't know what you saw.
Well, I'm not asking you to read my mind. I'm saying, are there any changes in what you proposed that did not get passed at town meeting? Were there changes that impacted Fisk Street, 133 North Street?
There's been no changes to the document that was presented at town meeting last May.
Okay.
To date.
To date. And what about in the future? Are you looking to make any changes? And I ask that in part because 133, as you know, has been rapidly developed from the corner of Fisk Street heading into Andover.
Yeah,
And there's construction right now, which I don't know even what the nature of it is. I can see that the structures are very close to the street. Was the garage?
So, right, so that was built out under, or approved under current zoning. And what's up there is a community village overlay district right now. And that's what set the table for that type of development to occur. What we're proposing in the current, or I mean in the new bylaw, is to remove that overlay district. But I would have to double check as to exactly what it was that the rezoning was. I don't off the top of my head know. But those places along Andover Street from North Street down to 495 or anything that was zoned in the overlay district will now be identified as a regular zoning district. So you will know exactly by looking at the bylaw what can be built there. You won't have to go into the text of the bylaw to find what type of overlay it is and what type of uses are allowed there. So that's one change that I can tell you from the mapping perspective, the committee looked at doing was to remove that overlay. And then as Karen had asked the questions about the uses in the office research district, there were some changes to the uses, and that will be taken up at the next meeting.
Okay. Does that include the area of International Drive, the community overlay?
You know,
I don't think it thinks that.
yeah, it doesn't, but what it does is, so it's at north, what it picks up is the hotel site.
The hotel.
So at International and North Street, where the proposed hotel was,
Yes.
that is in the overlay district.
Okay.
And then I think it makes its way up to Andover Street and then snakes down Andover Street.
So, did I just understand that you're saying from where that proposed hotel was that fizzed out, I assume it fizzed out, opposite Raytheon,
Opposite Raytheon, yes.
up all the
To-
way to 133?
I believe so.
So opposite the Battles house and so forth?
Yeah,
Because that's where the condos are going to be.
yeah,
It's the triangle, right?
It's a
yeah,
triangle.
The triangle?
yep,
So that's still all community overlay?
yep.
Well, as of now, because we're still working under the old bylaw, and
Yeah.
the new one lost, we keep what's there now. The new proposal is different, the one that would come up now.
And
There
what-
is no overlay in that one,
Right.
Not in that area,
no. There's no
Okay, just-
overlays, period, right?
just where the garage was?
There's still a couple, but groundwater.
Yeah, the overlays that'll be left are not really use overlays that we did in the past. They're groundwater protection and those types of overlay districts. So I think it's really hard to give you an answer off the top of my head right now. I mean, because I would want to take a look at the map and then translate what the map district is to what the uses are.
Fair
But
enough. Mhm.
But I think what you'll see, though, really is that there would be nothing more than what is being built there now. I mean, what's on that strip of, because there's nothing, I don't believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but on that side of Andover Street, we may have one or two residential homes left there
Well, right on the corner itself,
of Andover and North.
Fisk Street,
Oh, on Fisk. Yeah, well, we don't,
that's the yellow house. And then the building lots are, the concrete's been poured. I don't know what that is going to be, where the garage was.
that's north of Andover. There's,
That's Andover Street, right, but
up at Fisk, there's
going,
nothing. There was no
I'm
extension.
sorry, North Street. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
sorry, not Fifth Street, North
Yeah.
Street, yeah.
Yeah, those are permitted townhouses that are going in there.
And can you, don't mean to put you on the spot, do you know how many units are there?
18,
18?
18 townhouses.
18. And is the house coming down?
Yes. There are 5 buildings.
And what about the other residences going down, heading south on North Street? The ones opposite the Battle House?
Yeah,
One property on North Street, the rest are in.
Not part of the project?
yeah, I don't think that one is coming down.
Okay. Is that, but that's not zoned residential, is it?
Well, I think it's zoned residential with the overlay on it.
Right. It's zoned residential, but the corner has the overlay on it.
Yeah.
But the side where Raytheon and the Battle House does not have the overlay on it.
Right, but with the other side of the street, the east side of it.
The corner of it has
I
the
had the
overlay.
map.
Yeah, well, it's a question of how far down the corner goes, I guess.
I know.
I'll have to take a look at the
Yeah,
map.
the zoning
Yeah.
map is on the website.
All righty,
And
thank
you'll be able
you.
to zoom in on it and look at the parcels.
And again, on January 5th, we're going to talk about the zoning map, so might be a good one to pay attention to and maybe attend. All right, anyone else? Yep, one last time, Bob. One last time.
Overlay district. What is the difference between overlay district and spot zoning? What is the difference? And who approves an overlay district?
You.
Yes, town meeting approves overlay districts. So what we have currently, I think, is 11 overlay districts right now that were approved by town meeting. Like I said, there's groundwater protection, there's medical dispensary, medical marijuana dispensary overlay district. There's a whole bunch of uses like town center overlay, community village overlay, south village over. There's a lot of those. All of those were approved by town meeting on a piecemeal basis. So every year an amendment came to town meeting over the course of 15 years, where we had about 130 different amendments to town meeting, which is one of the reasons why we're trying not to do this as a piecemeal approach, and we're trying to do this as a wholesale approach. So that's approved by town meeting, and again, like I said earlier, it kind of sets the table as to what uses are allowed and what permitting is required. So you have your underlying zoning, which could be residential. Town meeting can vote to have an overlay on top of it, which could allow for commercial development, which is pretty much what we saw up at North and Andover Street. That's how that evolved over time. Now, spot zoning is a little bit more challenging, and I was just reading up on it a few weeks ago. Spot zoning is really, you have to almost think of it as taking an individual parcel and looking at that parcel and saying, we're going to allow a gas station, right in the middle of Cardigan Road.
Right.
And that is a clear example of spot zoning, of picking that one parcel. But the courts over time have said spot zoning is really relative to the context of the neighborhood and the size of the lot. So we've had some lots in town that were 80 acres that we single zone, we created a zoning district on that 80 acres, and we were advised by our council that that was not spot zoning, that something over 5 acres would not be considered spot zoning.
But the same criteria should go for overlay districts as well.
It could.
Where it is, size of it. And before this question I don't want to lose, thank you. I appreciate the answer, everybody, thank you. If there is an overlay district approved in town meeting, thank you, is there a shelf life with that? So if an overlay was passed in 1988, 2018, 2015, whatever, is that perpetual? Does that overlay district stay there in perpetuity, or there's like a 3 or 4 year shelf life? If you don't build, you lose that overlay variance, for lack of better words.
That's a fair question, and it lasts forever unless there is a sunset clause that's put into it. So most of the overlays that we have do not have those sunsetting type clauses in them. We did have one out at the Highway Corridor Overlay District, which would have been the mall down in South Tewksbury, which was approved by town meeting in 2004, and I think it had an expiration on it of 2008 or 2010. So it really depends, a town meeting would have to put that expiration on it. And in the instance that I gave you, town meeting then lifted that expiration, so that overlay still exists out there today.
But can we put that into the bylaw? You talk about nothing's been added yet. Because, so everything is grandfathered no matter what goes into this, the new bylaw? Everything that is grandfathered?
No. So let me just jump in for 1 second. The proposed draft eliminates the overlays with just a few exceptions that have been noted.
Okay.
So what you're driving at with respect to, we want to remove them, the draft would do exactly that. They're no longer in the draft.
But for his question though, do you mean something that exists now that was already built? Or do
No.
you mean- Okay, all right.
No,
Okay.
if it's
Right.
zone, if someone had an overlay proposal on top of it, and
Right.
it's just sitting there dormant, would, okay.
It's one of the changes that was at the inception of this process was the consideration of we've done so many overlays, change the underlying foundation so you don't need them.
Right.
Right.
Okay. That's good, I like that, okay. Thank you. That was my last question.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right, last time around. Then we're going to move to our emails.
Frequent speakers.
Probably forgot what I was going to say.
I do that all the time.
Okay. At the next meeting, are you going to, or any of the subsequent meetings, are you going to be able to like answer questions from attendees? Because it's a working meeting as opposed to a public hearing. It's still a public meeting though.
Yeah, just to be clear, my intention is they're working meetings, they're not public hearings. So that's why we're having this discussion tonight, to get your input. You certainly are welcome to come and attend and listen and learn, and then we're going to have another public input session at the end before we make all of our decisions to give you another opportunity to offer your comments. So as you come to the next meeting and you have something on the use table that we've discussed, if you have a concern about that, you can email us.
Okay.
Or you can come back to the last public input meeting that we offer to you, and you can raise that topic at that point.
Okay.
So there are windows of opportunity to do that, but we're not going to have a public hearing each and every meeting.
Okay. And last thing I wanted to say, and I know I've mentioned this before, is if you would consider recording the working meetings so that people could watch it on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I think you'd get more involvement from the residents if you really thought about considering to do that.
Yep, and you made that suggestion, and we did consider it. This is being televised or
Right.
recorded, and the town has made an effort. We're trying to cut back on staff time on the meeting television or televising meetings. We're trying to focus on the major boards. So the boards of planning and school committee and select board.
I understand that,
Et
but-
cetera. So I understand your point, but we have to be respectful of staff time as well, because it's
I
a
get
huge
it, but
commitment.
I would contend that this is extremely important board, considering it's going to be, what it involves. And also the
Fair
fact
comment.
that even in the smaller room, there is that capability to record from there. It doesn't necessarily have to be here.
It's not about recording or not, it's about having the individuals to
I
do
get it,
that.
but
your point's made, and I
I would
appreciate
just say
that.
it
Yep.
is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me draw your attention, if I can, to the emails that were sent in from the time of our first meeting to, I think we had a deadline of the 15th of October, and actually we've received a couple more recently, and we've included them. So the first email is dated September 17. It's from George Ferdinand. And I'm just going to note the topic. This will all become part of the record and will end up on our website for those of you who want to read them. But his comments pertain to the fee in lieu of payments. I will note, again, for the record, Mr. O'Brien, who spoke earlier tonight, essentially verbally repeated his email, so I won't talk to the subject matter there. Don Bowden, on the 27th of September, gave us some commentary about the village residential aspects to the bylaw, specific to Marshall and Erlin streets or roads, and had some questions about the maps. On the 2nd of September, Marie Garavanian spoke to, I believe it's lot size, let me see, yep, lot size that was referenced earlier this evening, in particular because seniors want to downsize. October 20, we had Harold Wynn, who offered his comments in person again this evening. Thank you for those. November 2nd, today, we received an email from a Peter Zdinak, and this focused on, number one, and I'll note it for the record because I want to give my committee members, I've only been back on this committee for a short time, but this committee's been in existence, has been noted for some time. So Peter did acknowledge the work and time that the committee members have put in, number one. Number two is he was concerned about the setback distance of off-premises signs relative to residential use. So I believe this is around the billboards that were previously discussed and adopted at town meeting, 1,000 feet versus 500 feet. So I want to note that. We had another email, I believe, received today, Carolyn Watkins, actually Sunday, October 31st, commenting, in her opinion, the draft is too large, suggesting that it be broken out into smaller sections. Also registered some comments about keeping the town center with a New England historic look. And in her opinion, some of the zoning changes may dilute that philosophy. And then raised a question about increase in number of houses or residences and what that might do to services, specifically the schools. As of today, November 2nd, we also had an email from Paige Impink, and this was, I believe, on behalf of the Open Space and Recreation Committee, and that was proposing some changes to specify native plantings and referring to plantings in one specific section of the zoning bylaw 6.1.12 around the topic of landscaping requirements. So we'll consider that in the equation. On October 22nd, Mr. Bob Wald provided a number of areas of commentary These were, some of them were presented as potential amendments at the May 5th, 2021 town meeting, and he reiterated, it looks like 6 of those concerns. So they range in topic. Again, these will be made part of the record, and this committee will review them as they deem appropriate at the right time. I think that covers all of the emails that we've received to date. Did I miss any?
That's it.
Okay. All right. And all the members have those, and we will incorporate those comments within the context of our working agenda. All right. Any other old business that we need to tend to?
The only, I don't know, I guess it's work business, but the committee asked, what's that?
Just speak up.
Oh, the committee asked last time to go back to the planning board and get an answer on if there were any of the members who, I guess it was whether or not anyone felt that this next effort of the zoning bylaw were dead on arrival regardless of what the committee did.
Yeah.
None of the members felt that it was, that they didn't at least enter it with an open mind to see what comes out of the committee. So I guess the answer to the question is no one on the board at present said that it was, a no-go for them.
Great.
Out of hand. The board did request, however, that we ask for the same sort of question to be asked to the Board of Selectmen, whether or not, and I raised it before, was, what sort of support this document is, expected to get from that board as well, because it's pretty much the other board involved in this process.
Yep.
So I guess that would be through you back to them.
I'll take that back to the board. Happy to do so. And I would expect that you'll have the same answer. So I appreciate your talking with the planning board about that.
No problem.
All right, we don't have any new business. We've covered correspondence, so that would bring us to, let me just offer up any comments or any concerns from members of the committee before we adjourn.
I just, thank you. I don't want to reiterate, but I will add to what Steve said about meeting with the planning board and discussing going on further as you wanted us to, and they were emphatic. They said, if you thought you could waste the time and not gain anything, I know you don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. So we have their full support.
Excellent. Thank you. Mark, anything?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so let's take a vote. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned at 6:52. Thank you.